The morning light hadn't yet cleared the trees when I stepped into the training center at Camp Merritt, Virginia. The gravel crunched beneath my boots, same rhythm as always, 4 paces to the door, pause, exhale, step through. Inside, the air was thick with sweat and synthetic leather. Music pulsed low, metal weights clanked in intervals, and over it all, the hum of ego-made flesh. I kept my eyes forward. Didn't need to look to know the glances were already coming. Fresh faces, mostly reservists, early 20s, energy to burn, respect yet to be earned. Their uniforms were clean, too clean. Boots that hadn't seen a monsoon or a desert, tags still bright from the factory. I made for the mats in the corner, unrolling my wrap methodically. From the weight bench, a voice broke through. Probably fought more keyboards than combatants. The words weren't meant to be heard clearly. That's how they always start, loud enough to insult, quiet enough to retreat. Another chimed in, trying too hard to laugh. Definitely admin desk jockey. I didn't turn around. I didn't blink. I just kept winding the wrap around my left wrist, careful even. That hand's always slower now, nerve damage never quite healed. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting for some reaction. I gave them none. But the wrap slipped. It was small, barely a slide down my arm, but it was enough to reveal the burns. 4 vertical lines, each one seared black and raised like railroad tracks. Not ink, not stylized. Just truth, burned in deep. The room quieted. Someone, Rick, I think, let out a short breath. The kind that says, oh. It wasn't just my name on the schedule that changed the room. It was what it meant. Porter. They'd seen it on the clipboard. Probably Googled it, maybe not. Staff Sergeant Elaine Porter, 43. Too old to impress, too quiet to intimidate. But the marks, those they didn't expect. And that's the thing with silence. People think it means weakness. They forget silence is where memory lives. I tied off the wrap, pulled the compression sleeve back up, and stood. No rush. No need to prove anything. At this point, I wasn't here to teach. I was here to see who still had something to learn. At 43, I moved differently than I used to. Not slower. Just without the showmanship younger soldiers were like aftershave. I don't bounce. I don't banter. I just move. My training shirt is faded beyond regulation. The collar's gone soft, the logo half erased. My boots don't creak, they mold. Worn thin where they should be. Stitched and restitched at the arch. You can always tell a real soldier by the state of their boots. I took my place on the far mat, facing the mirror but not looking into it. A line of younger troops stretched down the left side of the room, Rick, Spence, and Cale among them. The 3 always together, sharing smirks and that relaxed arrogance only found in men who've never needed to be serious. You missed the beginner's class, Rick muttered, loud enough. Hope you brought a form for bruises. They weren't wrong in a way. I wasn't scheduled for this far. I volunteered. Just wanted to keep the edge sharp. But there's a fine line between doubt and disrespect, and these boys leapt over it without even noticing. Cale tilted his chin at me. You do recon in the file room? I wrapped my wrists again, tighter this time. The sleeve pulled slightly. Not much, but enough. The burnt marks glinted faintly in the overhead lights. I saw Cale pause. Just a flicker. They didn't understand the marks. They always assumed the worst about a woman in uniform past 40. Must have been logistics. Maybe comms. Maybe PR. Not one of them thought, unlisted. Not one thought, special operations. They wouldn't have imagined me moving through stone corridors at night with 2 clickless rifles on my back. Wouldn't know how it feels to carry a teammate's weight down an incline while tracer rounds slice air behind you. Wouldn't know what it costs when you fail to carry them fast enough. But I do. They didn't know I used to be Porter and someone else. Daniel. He was Staff Sergeant Daniel Porter, 5 years younger than me and better at smiling than I ever was. We married late, both of us already deep into our careers. No kids. Just 2 dog tags on a single chain, a thing we joked about, even after our last mission together. It was supposed to be a short rotation, quick recon in and out, off-grid and unofficial. We were told the hilltop was unoccupied. It wasn't. When the first shot cracked, it split the night. By the time the third echoed, Dan was already down, chest blown open before he even turned toward the sound. I dragged him for 100 meters through shale and blood, got him under cover, pressed his tag to his chest with shaking fingers. Then the explosion came. I don't remember the heat. Just the sound. Like metal tearing apart the world. When I woke up in the evac tent, the only part of him they handed me was the tag. Melted into the sleeve of my right wrist, fused into the skin. The medics wanted to remove it. I refused. It's the only part of him that came back. People ask why I never remarried. I never tell them. I carry him. That's enough. I wear his tag under my sleeve, and I etched a line beside it for every operation after. For in total, none of them listed in my file. All of them buried in clearance codes and redacted documents. I don't tell the new ones that either. I let the lines speak, and they always do eventually. Rick moved toward the mat now, watching me stretch. You get those in a bar fight? He asked, half joking, half testing. I gave him nothing. Just finished wrapping the other wrist and stood up. Spence leaned back on the weight bench, stretching like he was bored. Gray line, he said to no one in particular. That mission got hairy. We had to go dark. I led evac. Not a lot of us made it out. That name, Gray line. It hit like a breath caught sideways in the throat. He kept talking. Never saw so much fire in one place. Sliced through the ridge with nothing but grit and dumb luck. That ridge wasn't luck. It was 3 recon teams and 2 evac birds led by me. I looked up for the first time. My voice was calm, flat. You weren't there. Spence's smirk faltered. Huh. You weren't at Gray line, I repeated. Because if you were, you'd remember me. I led that evac. And you wouldn't have lasted an hour. The room fell still. Spence scoffed, trying to recover. You saying I'm lying? I'm saying, I said, stepping toward the mat, that men who survived Gray line don't brag about it. They remember it. And they remember who saved them. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement near the door. Captain Ray Winston had entered, quiet as always. He was 51, built like the kind of man who'd rather observe than command. His posture was pure alertness, the sort of calm you only learn under sustained fire. His eyes scanned the room, found Spence, then Rick, then me. They settled on my wrists. He froze. Just for a second. He recognized the marks. Not ink. Not decoration. History. And with that, the room changed again. Spence stood too tall for a man who'd just been unmasked. He chuckled, but the sound was forced. All right, Recon Queen. You want to settle this on the mat? I nodded once. The others backed up, giving space. Rick leaned against the wall, trying to smile but failing. Cale looked unsure now, like someone who had just remembered he might be wrong. Spence peeled off his hoodie, his grin twitching. Let's go, Grandma. Show me that legendary recon grit. I didn't answer. I just moved. We circled. He bounced on his feet, cocky loose. I stayed centered, grounded. My hips low, shoulders level. He threw a jab too wide. I didn't react. Another feint, this one sharper. I stepped into it. His eyes widened when I caught his wrist mid-strike and pivoted, dragging him forward into a takedown. His back hit the mat with a thud that snapped the air in two. Before he could breathe, I rolled and locked his arm at the elbow, pinning his shoulder flat. He twisted, kicked. I shifted my weight and dug my knee into his chest. His legs flailed once, then stilled. He tapped. Loud. 3 times. 4. The mat echoed. I let go, stepped back, and stood. Spence lay still for a moment, gasping. When he sat up, the smirk was gone. What the hell was that? Captain Winston stepped forward. He hadn't moved until then. His voice was low but final. Those marks on her wrist? Each one's for a confirmed kill in unacknowledged operations. She didn't just serve in Gray line. She led it. You just bragged about surviving something you weren't cleared to hear about. Silence. Winston turned to the others. Her full record's not in the system. You won't find it in the archive or on Google. But I was there. She saved 12 lives that night, myself included. He looked at Spence. That thing you do with your stories, stealing valor? Don't do that again. Spence nodded, too quick. I didn't know. You didn't ask, Winston replied. I stepped off the mat, heart steady. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. I'd done what needed doing. Nothing more. The others watched as I sat back on the bench, unwrapping my wrists in silence. No one laughed now. No snide remarks. Just the kind of quiet that comes when truth cracks open a room like a flare in darkness. Rick approached me slowly, his voice low. Why didn't you say anything before? I looked up, the burn on my wrist catching the light. I don't talk about things I buried. He nodded once and backed away. Across the gym, Winston spoke with one of the junior officers. I caught only fragments. Took an IED outside Talafar. She pulled 3 out of the wreck herself. Damn Porter? That was her husband. They served together. I didn't stop him. Let them speak. I had nothing left to prove. What I had was seared into my skin. One more round. I turned to him, met his eyes. You sure? He nodded. I need to understand. That was enough. We moved on to the mat. No warm-up. No show. Just 2 bodies in motion, one learning, one remembering. He was better this time. Calmer. Tried less to dominate and more to survive. His footwork was tighter. His center was steadier. But I had something he didn't. I had loss. And loss changes the way you move. We circled again. He lunged. I sidestepped, let his weight pass, and redirected it into a fall. He landed on his feet, turned, and re-engaged. Better. Focused. He swung a low sweep. I blocked. Twisted. Locked. And pinned. He tapped. 1, 2, 3. This time when he stood, he didn't speak. Instead, he held out his hand. I hesitated, then took it. It wasn't respect for victory. It was recognition of weight. We stepped off the mat together. The room exhaled. Captain Winston approached. Clipboard tucked under one arm. She taught you something, he said to Spence, nodding. Spence nodded back. She taught me I don't know anything. Winston looked at me. You want it in the report? No. You earned it. I don't need it. He nodded, then stepped aside. As I packed up again, slower this time, I felt a different silence settle into the room. One that felt like reverence, not fear. Rick approached quietly. What was Gray Line, really? I zipped my bag. Something no one should have survived, I said. But some of us did. And some of us didn't. That's all that matters. He didn't ask more. Outside, the wind had shifted again. The flag moved higher today, someone had raised it. I watched it for a moment, the sun catching its edges like memory catching the soul. As I stepped into the light, Spence called out behind me. Staff Sergeant. I turned. Thank you, he said. I nodded. Some lessons aren't taught in classrooms or manuals. Some you learn only by being broken. I didn't return the next day. I didn't need to. Legacy isn't presence, it's imprint. I walked the perimeter trail behind the training facility where trees still held onto the last stretch of spring. The gravel crunched underfoot, same cadence as the approach I'd taken into war zones. Step, check, listen. Step again. There's a certain rhythm you never unlearn. The path looped past the firing range, the old communications tower, the rusted bleachers that hadn't seen a ceremony in years. Places where memory lived in dust and chain link. At the base of the tower, someone had taped a list to the board, upcoming evaluations, gear checks, name rotations. My name was no longer there. No ceremony for that either. I wasn't retiring. I wasn't quitting. Just stepping away. A quiet withdrawal, the way people like me leave things, without need for eyes, for handshakes, for backslaps. I walked back to the barracks. Packed my duffel slow. At the bottom of the drawer, folded in black cloth, lay the original chain. Dan's second tag. Unburned. Untouched. I carried both, now one fused to me, the other tucked close. The new generation would carry on. Some would listen. Some would forget. That's how it's always been. On my way out, I passed Winston's office. The door was open. He looked up. Heading out. I nodded. Where to? South. Maybe Texas. Maybe nowhere. He stepped around the desk. Still sharp. I smiled faintly. Sharp was never the problem. He watched me for a moment. Then reached for a drawer. From it, he pulled a folder, weathered, sealed in plastic. A declassified Gray Line. I took it from him. The cover read, Operation Gray Line, Field Report, Porter, E. My hand hovered over the seal. You can open it, he said. Or not. It's yours now. I lived it, I said. No need to reread it. I left the folder on his desk. Outside, the sun sat low. Gold across the gravel. Shadows long and patient. I walked past the motor pool, past the old comms unit that still flickered with green static, past the chow hall where someone was laughing behind a steaming tray. And then I saw them, Rick, Cale, and Spence, lined up outside the mat room, gear in hand, wrists wrapped, waiting. They didn't wave, didn't call out, just nodded solemn, the way soldiers do when they finally understand what they've been shown. Cale gave me the faintest smile. Still sharp, he mouthed. I nodded. I passed them without breaking pace. At the gate, I paused, reached up under my sleeve and adjusted the chain, the tag warm from skin. I walked out of Camp Merritt the same way I came in. Not to prove anything, just to remember. Because some names you carry with you, and some names you become. Respect isn't worn. It isn't stitched into a uniform or hung on a wall. It's earned in silence and sacrifice in the moments when no one sees and you act anyway. Some carry scars you never get to see, not until they choose to show you. And when they do, the only thing left to do is listen. And remember. Because the weight of what's been endured is never in the telling, it's in the carrying. And some names deserve to be carried. Not for the medals. Not for the war stories. But because they taught others how to stand. How to see. How to stay. Even when the world looked away.